Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to our first power lunch of the fall semester. I am Jennifer Banda. I am the Executive Director of the Center for Women in Law. And at the center, our mission is to help law students and practicing lawyers confidently build, navigate, and advance their careers. During this month's Susan Blount Power Lunch series, we will introduce you to three prominent lawyers from a wide range of career paths for thoughtful conversations on those speakers' legal careers, their career paths, and their lessons learned. We also have a live stream component today with our practicing lawyers earning an ethics hour of CLE. So if you are in the room and you plan to claim CLE, make sure you sign in. If you are streaming on Zoom, we will note your presence. If you have called in by phone and all we see is your phone number, please send us an email to where you registered to let us know that you are on today so that we can send you the CLE information. So welcome to those in the room and those on Zoom. And this is a power series, so mark your calendars because on October 15th, we will have as our guest Karin Patman, who is a former Bracewell partner and the United States ambassador to Iceland. And on October 23rd, we have Arlise Upton-Key, a career federal FDIC banking lawyer. And for those Longhorns in the room, she's the current president of the Texas X's. The series is named after Susan Blount, who was a founding member of the Center for Women in Law, who generously served as our interim director in 2019. So this speaker series and our other legal programming is only possible through the generous donations of our members. I hope you'll check out our website for our future programs, and we would love to have you support the center. I think we'll put a link in the chat to make it real easy for you to look at that. So, but let's get to today's main event. I am thrilled today to introduce Amy Stewart, who is the founding partner of the Stewart Law Group. So Amy was selected by Texas Lawyer in 2022 as one of the top 3 attorneys in Texas. She's a distinguished trial attorney and the founder of the only minority and women-owned business litigation defense firm in the Dallas-Fort Worth area. Amy represents multiple Fortune 100 clients in commercial, employment, labor, and product liability matters, and is also certified as an arbitrator with the American Arbitration Association, presiding over commercial, construction, and employment matters. She is also chair-elect of the American Bar Association's litigation section, leading the nation's largest association of litigators and trial attorneys. One of the many things, and I think really sets Amy apart, is her competitive drive and her strategic thinking skills garnered from her experience in the world of Division I athletics. Amy played college basketball at Wake Forest, where she was the team captain. She went on to coach basketball at both Wake Forest and Tulane, before shifting her focus to law school at the University of Missouri-Columbia, where she was on law review, and then she moved on to a lot of wins in the courtroom. So I would also mention that she serves on the executive committee for the Center for Women in Law, where I really love working with her. So we will dive right on into questions. We want to have a conversation today to really talk about Amy's career and why she's great at what she does and pearls of wisdom she has that she wants to share. So let's start at Wake Forest, if that's okay, the Demon Deacons.
Well,
tell us a bit about your background in playing basketball.
So as they say, I got to Texas as soon as I could in 2006 when my husband got a job here. But I'm originally from High Point, North Carolina, and you have to say it like that, High Point.
High Point.
Many people are thinking, this sofa I'm sitting on came from High Point because it's the furniture capital of the world. So I grew up there in High Point, and we have a wonderful universities in the state of North Carolina, just like here in Texas. And I ended up getting selected to go to Wake Forest when I was in 5th grade. And I remember sitting in the back of the bus going, I'm going to go there when I go to college. And where I grew up, people didn't go to college. And so they're like, you're just making stuff up, blah, blah, blah. Fast forward, I got a scholarship to play there and kind of made the dream come true. So I played there for 4 years, 90 to 94, and so people have context. Timmy was a freshman when I was a senior in 94, and when I graduated, I had no idea what I wanted to do with my life. And so I want to let the students know who are watching that you may not know right now what you want to do, but it'll all work out if you got work ethic. And so I played at Wake and again, didn't know what I wanted to do, so I coached at Wake Forest, and clearly I wanted some alcohol with my basketball, and I moved on down to New Orleans and coached at Tulane, and then was in the locker room, and I loved the relationships with coaching people to meet their highest potential, but I just knew it wasn't in college sports. It was supposed to be something else, but I still didn't really know what I wanted to do. And then found my way and I was doing pharmaceutical sales at one point, and I was meeting with one of my doctors, and he says, "Why are you doing this?" And I said, "Well, I'm living in Columbia, Missouri with my husband, Ed Stewart, and I don't know what else to do." He says, "You need to go to medical school or law school." I said, "Well, I can't stand the sight of blood," so that narrows it down. And so I literally went to the law school that day and met with the dean, and it was February, and he said, "Well, we've already selected the class, so if you do well on the LSAT, we'll try to get you in." And then in August, I was in law school. Yeah. I don't do anything easy.
And
let's just put it
or
that
slow.
way.
Yeah.
Or slow.
Wow. And so how did you transition into law school? What was that like?
Well, I was older because I think I was 25 or 26 at the time when I went to law school. So the transition was different because I wasn't down at Harpo's at the bar. Anybody that's from the University of Missouri knows Harpo's bar. I wasn't down there. Oh, by the way, I got pregnant my first year in law school because it wasn't hard enough. So Ava turns 21 this year. So it was a little bit, I was a non-traditional student, which is kind of a theme that's gone through my entire legal career, actually.
And so what did you get involved in while you were in law school?
Well, I started law review in the Black Lawyers Association. I was heavily involved in that. But really being a mom in law school that was about it, sister. That and studying.
I mean, I can't imagine having done that after law school, doing that during law school. Yeah. So that is that, again, all fast and just done right in. So then tell us about your path coming out of law school. I think you went into the law firm litigation world coming right out, or?
Yeah. So my husband worked for the Big 12 conference, and so we moved here in 2006, and so it was sight unseen. We didn't expect to be in Texas. I think he got the job like the beginning of August. By the end of August, we're in Dallas, and I still had a semester to go because I had to take a semester off to have Ava. And so I remember calling SMU crying, like, "Please, I just need 17 credits." And they got me in. I mean, they doubled my amount of tuition that I was paying at University of Missouri. But so I came into Dallas and didn't really know anybody. And so it was also during Obama's first term. And so the crisis, the financial markets crashed. Law firms weren't hiring. And then what I found from law firms is that they like traditional students, check the box of law review and all these things. So my resume didn't make any sense. Again, it goes to that non-traditional kind of theme that goes through my practice because I played basketball. I coached basketball. I was a pharmaceutical sales rep. Then I go to law school, and then I have this break for one semester. What's happening? And so it was a hard sell. And so relationships really helped me get my first job. And I started with a small firm, Markland Hanley, that was a spinoff of Vincent and Elkins. And because it was two partners and one associate, I got a lot of great experience that most associates don't get, that I, at my firm, try to model our firm based on that I didn't want to do stair step, which I saw after I started meeting people, a lot of associates were kind of doing stair stepping. You do doc review first, and then you do this, and then you do that. I was kind of thrown into it. And so I remember my first deposition was in El Paso. I was afraid that if I passed the border, I couldn't come back. I was just so scared. And my first deposition was there, and I actually started asking questions before they swore the witness in. They were like, "Oh, easy, girl, slow down." And so I just parlayed that, and a lot of the sports themes from coaching and being an athlete have really helped me, starting a deposition before the person's sworn in, but you got to keep up rolling, fail fast, get up and go. And so that's really been a theme that's gone through my experience is relying on my sports background to help me get through the tough times.
So then how did you come to the decision to start your own firm?
So I bounced around firms for a while, and frankly, I felt like I didn't fit in any of the firms. I was big law. I was at a litigation, bet the business type, Rambo-style boutique. I was with 2 smaller minority-owned firms. And I guess maybe because I was older, I came to the practice with a different mindset. And I started my firm because I wasn't getting the opportunities that I knew that I could do at the other firms. And, you know, I remember going to court and watching and never getting an opportunity and thinking, I can do better than him. Why don't they give me a chance? You know, and it just didn't work. And so 8 years ago, I decided, well, why don't you stop being that person in the back of the bus complaining and start your own firm? I had no idea what I was doing. Thankfully, there's people on YouTube that will tell you how to do everything, and which I watched a lot of YouTube. I relied on a bunch of friends and a bunch of mentors along the way.
And so tell us about your firm and the law practice today.
Okay, so we are and did not go into it this way. It's just happened. We are the largest minority women-owned business litigation firm in the state of Texas. We handle, as my daughter says, we handle stuff for the man. We represent big, large corporations because she likes very nice things. And so I represent companies when they get into any type of business dispute. We do a lot of labor arbitrations and employment arbitrations, product liability type cases. So anything on the defense side of the V, we handle that. We don't do family law. We don't do criminal law. I don't want to fight about anybody's house or kids, but if they want to fight about money, I'm their girl.
And so how big is the firm today? Tell us a little bit, just sort of,
So we started, it was me and a one partner, an associate, and now in 8 years through a pandemic, we are, I think, 12 attorneys, 4 amazing paralegals that make our office run. And then the staff that's associated with that, probably 3 or 4 administrative assistants.
And also, I think a big part of your practice sounds like it's also arbitration, because you were recently inducted into the International Institute for Conflict Prevention and Resolution, the panel of distinguished neutrals. So for those of us who don't do arbitration, tell us a little bit about what that group is and what that practice looks like, and, you know, kind of all about that.
So the way arbitration happened is that I had a mentor at Cox Smith, which is now Dykema, and he had me, he was in the Valley, but he said, hey, I want you to start helping me out on these labor arbitration and employment arbitrations. So I said, sure, okay, and really enjoyed it. It gave me an opportunity to actually hone some of my examination skills, because remember, I couldn't get time in the courtroom. Even though I did all the work, I was second chair, third chair, I never got to stand up in court. And in labor arbitrations, I was able to do that. And he provided me that opportunity. And so that was 15, 16 years ago. And so I'd go to these arbitrations, and then I would kind of look at the arbitrator, who is normally a white male who's over the age of 65. And I'm like, why, of all these years, why aren't there any women? Why aren't there any minorities that's doing this? And so that was kind of my retirement plan, because I'm looking at all these old guys like, oh, well, I guess you got to wait till you're 60 to do this thing. And I'm almost there, so I'm 5 years away. So that was kind of the retirement plan. But then I really liked it and got a lot of success, and our firm has had a lot of success with labor arbitrations, especially this past year. And so that's kind of one of the things I picked up along the way, is that don't let doors shut down on you just because, oh, that person doesn't look like me, or I don't have that same skill set or background. Like, if you want it, you got to work for it, you got to work at it, you got to get good, and you got to have a good skill set, and you have to build that. And so that's kind of what happened with that. And then I'm also certified with the American Arbitration Association. And I'm also a person who likes to give back. So because I knew that I was kind of breaking barriers to go into this area, I'm now helping other women to get certified. I speak about it all the time. Like, this is something that you can do as you start to retire, where you still want to be in the game, the legal game per se, but maybe you don't want to bill all the hours. And so that's one of the things that was kind of a retirement thing, but I've enjoyed it so much, and we're doing it.
So you were looking ahead, but then jumped right in, quick and fast again.
Quick and fast,
kind of
non-traditional.
Same here, because this is an ethical, because we do get the ethics hour.
Yeah.
I think arbitration maybe a little bit is a good place to talk, some about what are the ethical standards and what does that look like, that you bring to that work and that role.
Yeah, I mean, so it's similar to the same ethics that we bring to litigation. As an arbitrator, you don't follow the rules of evidence, but most parties, and just so everybody knows, arbitration is by agreement. So it's not like litigation where someone may sue you. Arbitration is by agreement, and so the parties have agreed to go to arbitration. And so what they do is they end up selecting the arbitrator. And one of the big things with selecting an arbitrator is on the arbitrator's behalf that you have to disclose any type of conflicts that you may have, which is obviously an ethical issue. There's very few ways to appeal an arbitration award, and one of those is if you do not disclose conflicts. And that's the one thing that is different from litigation, in that you just don't disclose conflicts related to the parties. So for the students, so anytime there's litigation or there's an arbitration, the law firm has to run what they call conflicts. And normally conflicts is just based on who the parties are. But when you're in arbitration, it's not only the parties, it's the counsel, it's also the venue, and it's all these different, and it's people within the law firm. So it's a deeper dive to make sure that ethically this arbitrator is the right arbitrator for you for this case. And that's different than in litigation.
And so give us an example maybe of, something you've worked in recently in arbitration. Just, talk about that a little bit more for the people that haven't done.
Yeah, so with arbitration, I have this amazing paralegal, Sandra Branch, and we travel all around the country to do our arbitrations. And this is me serving as an advocate in the arbitration, and I'll give you an example of serving as an arbitrator. And so we had to go to Cincinnati for one of our clients, and it's a very big arbitration for them, because it's related to a union and how products get into the stores. And this specific client has actual employees that go into HEB and delivers their product into the stores. And this issue is about these specific salespeople want credit for how product gets into the store that they don't touch. Like, for example, during the pandemic, when people could not be out and about, products still needed to get to the grocery store. So a new business model was revamped to send more products through a warehouse versus someone delivering them to the store. And they're saying that is cannibalizing their ability to sell their product in the store. And so that's what that arbitration is about. It's a contract. It's looking at the contract and see what the parties agreed to. And so we just had that one a couple of weeks ago. We also recently had an arbitration that came to light from TikTok. So there was a TikTok video of a client's worker mishandling a device, a wheelchair device. And unbeknownst to him, there was someone in the airport videotaping the incident. And that ended up being in an arbitration. And so we had to represent that client in an arbitration. And then as an arbitrator, I normally handle employment-related disputes. That's when a company terminates someone for whatever fill-in-the-box reason they terminate them for, but the employee says, nope, you terminated me because I am Asian or a woman or over 40 or some type of class, protected class. And so those are hard, and part of the thing, going back to the ethics, and it's not an ethics thing, but you get so used to litigation And litigation is like you turn over every stone and find everything. Arbitration is supposed to be the softer, faster, less expensive way of dispute resolution. But another way that you can attempt to overturn an arbitration award is if a party argues that the arbitrator did not review all of the evidence. And so you get in times as an arbitrator that you'll have practitioners in front of you trying to litigate a matter, not arbitrate it, meaning they want to send a bunch of subpoenas out. Note to self, arbitrators don't really have subpoena power, so we can send it, but it's just like if Jennifer Banda is sending it. It's about that as effective. And so those are a few of the types of arbitration matters I've handled recently.
Talking a little bit just on the ethics, some of the other things that I know you deal with that are in the ethical realm. So you have taken a prominent stand on bullying, and specifically bullying in the profession.
Mm-hmm.
So tell us about that.
Yeah, so during the pandemic, when everybody was looking for content, Scott Stoley, who is an appellate attorney in Dallas, Mike Bassett, who's a personal injury attorney in Dallas, and Judge Royal Ferguson, who's a former federal judge, kind of approached me and said, hey, we want to start talking about bullying in the profession. And all these three men are 3 white men over the age of 60. And I was like, y'all get bullied? I was like, really? And so we, over the last 5 years, we have spoken at least 10 times in various different national, local bars, State Bar of Texas. They recorded us talking about just the 3 different ways of bullying. There's bullying that you think, your colleague is bullying you. And then there's opposing counsel that's bullying you. But then there's also judges that bully. And it may be a passive-aggressive way of bullying, but it's still bullying.
Mm-hmm.
And so we really focus on the ethical rules. Do not ask me what those are right now, in regard to bullying, because when you look at the professional responsibility rules, you're not going to see the word bullying in there, right?
Right.
But you see things about character and fitness and treating people with respect and those types of things. And so I think just the other day, Scott emailed me and said, it's time for another presentation. And just hearing everyone's stories, because, you live in your own skin and your own experience, and listening to them talk about how they were bullied by their colleagues, how they were bullied by, opposing counsel, and how judges not wanting to keep a record, or and you having to assert yourself in a way to allow yourself to get that record was telling to me, because again, I would not have assumed Judge Royal Ferguson, Mike Bassett, or Scott Stoley were bullied. And it didn't make me feel better, but it made me feel, okay, we have something more in common, which is the fact that it's rampant. Illinois, the State Bar of Illinois and the Illinois court system has recently done surveys in regard to it. And I think it's something that I'm not sure if the pandemic, I'm not sure chicken and egg. I'm not sure what happened, but I know after the pandemic, I feel like there is more of an anxiety, animosity, just
willingness to say and do things you might not have
would never say,
done,
right? And so we're really trying to focus on that, and not only kind of vent and moan about it, but through our programming, we try to give skills as to how to deal with it when it happens to you. Because when we talked in our planning sessions, I was like, well, I didn't even think it would happen to you all. So this needs to be something that law firms need to be talking about in regard to when this happens. How do you deal with it if you're in a deposition and you're a young lawyer and someone's overly objecting? What are some tactics and strategies that you can put in place to stop that person from doing it, or at least having your own dignity and character and roll your shoulders back and say, I know what you're doing. Your tactic of bullying me to make me stop asking these really good questions is not going to stop. And then the one I think is really, really well received is how to deal with it when it comes from a judge, because they're in a position of power. Obviously, you want to stay on the judge's good side, But there's ways that you can deal with it in regard to asking for to keep a record, signaling that before you would go to the hearing. For example, you would normally never ask a judge, is your court reporter going to be there? But if you know you have a hearing and you know you need a record, then you need to make sure that you ask for that before the hearing, because that signals the court reporter, the court coordinator, and the judge, this is going to be a serious hearing. And so that's one thing to do. And then another tactic to throw Scott Stoley some business is if you know that you have an issue before the judge that could go up on appeal, and you want to maintain that good relationship with the judge, have appellate counsel with you. Introduce appellate counsel, when you have to introduce the parties, introduce counsel. And it's just a kind of a side wink of, we have appellate counsel here with us today, and anything related to the record, they will speak to that.
We're ready.
We're ready. We're ready.
So if this is ringing a bell with anyone who's in the room or who's listening, sounds like you are there's some presentations and some materials on CLE, or, where would you recommend people to?
Yeah.
Where do you start?
So there's a, Texas Bar CLE has videos of us speaking about that. State Bar of Texas has one on their webcast page. This was a couple of years ago, but I Googled it and it's still there. And then most recently we did one with Stratford and Barbary. I guess one of them bought the other or something, but they also just recorded, and that's available as well.
That is so interesting and such a important thing, especially if it's increasing and you're seeing it more. Really important thing to know that is out there, and to be able to reference that and figure out next steps on how to handle that. So let's talk a little bit more just about running your own firm as the principal and really the founding partner of the firm. What would you say, what are some of the benefits of running or having your own firm, but then also challenges?
Well, when you ask me to come down here, I say, okay, my boss said it was okay for me to come. So there's that part.
Benefit number one.
So some of the benefits are that because of my sports background, culture means a lot to me. And treating people with the respect that they deserve is really important to me. Giving everyone, no matter what you look like, an opportunity to succeed or fail and to coach you up, it was something that was important to me. And so to create an environment where people can, and we have a slogan, fail fast, get up and go, meaning that I'm going to be pushing you, just like with sports, I'm going to be pushing you really, really hard to do something you probably don't think you can do. But I'm going to be there for you if you put the work in, and I'm going to support you. I'm going to show you through constructive criticism what you're doing wrong and what you're doing right. A lot of times what I found in the legal profession is we have partners and senior associates that are telling people only what they're doing wrong, but not what they're doing well. Mm-hmm. And so we really try to focus on that. So culture is extremely important. So if you create your own law firm, you get to decide what that culture is going to be. Being able to be involved in various different bar associations, services. I'm a servant leader. And so being able to serve at various different bar associations, the Center for the Women in the Law, is important to me so that I could give back. I know that there are not many women who look like me handling commercial litigation at this level. And so I feel that I am totally blessed to be in this role. And I think that my God has told me this is what I'm supposed to do, because I think if other women and other minority women see me doing this, then they can believe that they can do it. Because I'm just a small girl from High Point, sitting at the back of the bus. High Point. Sitting at the back of the bus going, I think I'm going to go to Wake Forest, right? And so if I can do it, and who didn't know their way, didn't know where, I remember sitting on the bus, Jennifer, and telling my coach my senior year, I guess I'm going to work at Arby's. I don't know what I'm going to do, because I was the nicest, it was the nicest restaurant in High Point, Arby's. So if I can do it, anybody can do it. And so having a firm that shines bright to tell others that they can do this really, really matters to me. And obviously doing exceptional work, but just because we're fun and we have sports themes doesn't mean clients keep coming in. Very relational. One thing I learned at other law firms is that people are very transactional in the way that they deal with people. Instagram, social media, very transactional. I'm a relationship person. I don't want this to be the last time we talk. I don't want this to be the last time students hear me speak or last time I engage with them. I want to relate. I want to watch you grow. And so starting a firm allowed me to do that. Now, one thing when I started the firm that I think is different than other firms is that I knew that we were creating something that had not ever been created, and that there would be a lot of critics, and everything, every detail had to be done the right way. And I think that goes back to my coaching, that the details matter, and we'll just do it over and over and over again until we get it right. From an ethics standpoint, we had to make sure that the malpractice insurance, we had it in place, and the way that we do conflicts, that it was created and it stays in place. And that and billing, and all these students are going to learn all about the billable hour, and that our entries in regard to the billable hour must be correct, it's just not a guess how many hours, how many minutes you spend on something. It has to be to the minute. And all of those things matter when creating a law firm in regard to the ethics part of it.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. So what would you put as, the biggest challenges of starting your own firm? I mean, I'm sure that's a long list by the time from inception to today. Mm-hmm. But,
it's just things like basic stuff, like how do you lease space?
Right.
I mean, like where do we put desks and things of that sort? So, just learning how to, QuickBooks, how does that work? Just learning how to run a business, because we run a legal business. So that was the toughest part, because I didn't have any of that type of background. And then, I'm not going to lie, managing people is a lot of work. And I mean, it's good work, but managing people takes a lot of time, and dealing with those issues. So those are the toughest things. And then when we came on the scene, having to create a brand that is recognizable in the noise of the legal profession. And so what we've tried to do, and we were one of the first firms to do it, is that we really leaned into a social media presence about who we are and what we do and what we don't do. A lot of minorities work on the plaintiffs side. They do criminal work. They do family law work. And I can only speak for Dallas, but that's what I saw in the market. And so we were doing something totally different with creating a firm that's total on the defense side, the company side of litigation. And so having to do that and continue to build up the business from that respect.
You have mentioned a couple of times just about the importance of relationships, being a relational firm. I think for the students in the room in particular, one of the key things, you come to law school to learn, obviously, but building those relationships from day one are important, because I think they sustain you through your career. So, talking about just sort of the importance of, how do you build those relationships? You have an inspirational coaching personality. So I think probably that comes natural to you. But talk a little bit just about the importance of relationships and how you can, from day one in law school till, today when you're managing your own firm, how do you focus on that and make sure you keep that as a priority and keep building those relationships throughout your career?
Yeah, so many people will not believe this, but I am an introvert.
I don't believe that.
I'm an intentional introvert. And as I've gotten older, I've realized that. So I'm very intentional in regard to that relationships matter to me, versus I just want to be the life of the party. That's not me. Now that I've told you this, you'll say, well, she kind of goes in, she does her deal, and she leaves. And so relationships matter in the profession. So every student, please stay in touch with your classmates. And here's why. You're struggling right now in law school. You're like, why did I do this? I hate my mom and dad. I don't want to do this. Well, guess what? To your left and to your right, there's other people that feel the exact same way. And you have this experience like with sports and preseason training that you're going through this tough time together. And you get to learn about each other during the tough times. We were all good and shiny during the nice times, but what about those tough times? And then you continue, and then you graduate in 3 years, and you work together, and you take the bar exam, and you pass it, and then you go to a law firm, and you realize, I have no idea what I'm doing. And then you maybe go in-house. But if you maintain those relationships, and they knew you when, and you had character, you were someone they could count on, you weren't someone tearing the pages out of the law school books. I don't even know if they even look at law school books anymore, but there are people at law school who tore the pages out of the law school treatises, and we remember those names. But you get to know them, and then when you get into your 30s, 40s, you are outside counsel like me. I know that I'm supposed to be outside counsel and help my friends who are in-house. I just know it. People go, you should run litigation department. I'm like, nope, my litigation department is Stewart Law Group. And so you'll have friends that go in-house. And what do they want? They want someone outside that they trust. And who do they remember? That person that stayed up late with them at the law school library or wherever the kids study these days and help them through torts. And you can't replicate that relationship. And so what I like to do with my business development is, because that is what litigation is. When I was looking at what type of law did I want to do, I wanted something that gave me that same energy of playing a sport. What other profession other than a musician or an actor or a lawyer that people actually show up to watch you do what you do? I mean, that's a whole cottage industry in Dallas that you find out who's trying cases, and everybody's going down to the courthouse to watch, somebody, Mike Lynn, to try a case, And so I was like, okay, that's what I want to do. I mean, it's the legal practice. Last time I looked, there's basketball practice. Everybody's getting ready for the big game. That's what's called a hearing or a trial. And so all of those transferable skills have really helped me do this at a level where I'm the first college graduate in my family. I didn't know any lawyers growing up. Huge imposter syndrome. Hell, I thought I was going to work at Arby's. Right. So I'm living my best life, and I've really relied on that skill set of building relationships, building a team, and work ethic to kind of keep pushing me through that imposter syndrome.
And so a little bit to that end, you're also active, I know, in the pro bono. We talked about some of the volunteer stuff you're doing. I mentioned that you are chair-elect of ABA's litigation section, which is no small task, no small amount of work. So how do you balance being the boss lady, a litigator, an arbitrator, a volunteer, a mom, family person, a frequent public speaker, and have a life? How do you do what? How do you balance all that?
There's no balance.
Right.
So that's a thing for me that sometimes as women, we set ourselves up for failure by the type of language that we share with one another and in our head. And we're looking for this utopia or nirvana of balance. Well, again, going back to being athletic, we used to have balance drills, and there's never a time where you're actually on balance. Your body is always shifting. And so I call it work-life management because that's more realistic. And I really wish we could talk to, because I think women are leaving the profession because they're looking for this balance that just does not exist. And we are so already hard on ourselves that we see other women and they go, well, she's got it all together. She does not have it all together, right? And she's just working it, is using the balance. And so I call it work-life management. So I just got back from Italy. That was fun. It was 10 days in Italy with 8 of my girlfriends. Wonderful. That was what was important for the last 10 days. I got back last night. What's important is I'm here with you. And I managed that. and I'm able to do that at this point. Now, work-life management looks different along the way. I could not have done this. I couldn't have gone away for 10 days, leaving Ava with Ed, number one. But now Ava's off at the University of Miami. She's a junior. She's safe. Ed is at USC now, not in Dallas. So I get to travel around and with girlfriends in Italy, and they can come down here and see you. And so I think as women, we need to be honest, and from a generational standpoint, we need to be honest with the generations that come after us about what this profession is really like. Sometimes what I feel is we take our experiences, which were not the best, because many of us, especially the women that are on the executive committee for the Center for the Women in the Law, were trailblazers and had to knock down doors. And sometimes there's, I don't want to say bitterness, but there's that I had to do that, and you should be thankful. I mean, I remember feeling when I was a young associate trying to engage with some folks, and it was like, what are y'all complaining about? I had a baby in a broom closet and tried a case the next day. What are you complaining about? You girls have nothing to complain about. But they do. Their whole life is on social media now. The world is moving at such a fast speed with emails and texts. I mean, my clients call me, email, text me, WhatsApp. It's like all the ways of communication that people didn't have to work at before. And so I just challenge women from a generational standpoint to lock arms so that we can continue to grow as women in the profession, because I'm really concerned about us leaving. Talking about the ABA section litigation. So when I moved to Texas, I didn't know anybody. But what I did realize quickly is that if you went to SMU, you had your SMU crowd, and SMU people gave work to the SMU people, Texas people, tech people. I wasn't any of those people. So what I did strategically is I said, well, I can go to ABA section litigation when I was a young lawyer. And Deborah Williamson and Marty Truss, who were both partners at Cox Smith, now Dykema, came to me one day and said, you need to be involved with the ABA section litigation. And I just said, okay. I had no idea. And now 15 years later, I'm going to run the organization. And the reason I focused on that was because when I go to these conferences all across the country, I wanted the generation of lawyers when I came in, when they thought of some litigation in Texas, they're either going to refer it to me or ask me who can do it for them. And so that was a strategic move on my part, because I did not have connections to any of the Texas-based law schools. And it served me well. And I would not be able to have my firm today without the connections with the ABA section of litigation and being able to write, to present, and do all the things that the ABA section of litigation offers.
And I think that's a good reflection back to your conversation about relationships.
Yeah.
You know, find them, build them, keep them, and build them.
Yeah.
You know, in whatever way that you think you will enjoy, but will also, you know, you'll be good at and will serve your work. But you know, I think that's a good example of that.
Yeah, I mean, when people think about relationships, I don't have to go to dinner with everybody. I mean, but I can keep track of them on LinkedIn and just thumbs up or way to go, or send them a direct message and just say, great job, or how are you doing? I mean, we live in such a tumultuous, angry world right now that just reaching out to someone saying, girl, are you okay? You good? Is really all people need. They just need to be seen and to be heard. And so it doesn't take a long time to build a relationship. You just have to be intentional about it.
So what do you enjoy most? So, you know,
About the firm?
About what you do. Yeah.
Coaching and watching young lawyers do something they haven't ever done before. Watching them work through an issue, and me not trying to save them, and me providing and investing time with them, of asking questions, that Socratic method that we all hated in law school, right? If it's not said at the bottom of the well of a classroom, it's actually a really good learning tool. And so just watching our associates like have their first hearing, going with them when they get sworn in and they're nervous and being there to support them. The managing partner of our firm, Andrea Cook, she came to the firm, I think 3 years ago, and has been a managing partner for the last 2 years. A phenomenal lawyer who had been practicing for 12 years at that point, had never been seen by any of the law firms that she was at. Despite being most of the time the only Black woman at that firm, not being seen. And she is just excelling at this point because I was able to provide her an opportunity just to be seen. I'm coaching her along the way, but I'm just providing her an opportunity to do exactly what God put her on this earth to do.
Yep.
And taking the time to recognize that.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the coach in you, which is wonderful. So, and we've talked about some of the challenges right now, whether it's the, work-life management or, just, all of the things. But what's the most challenging part of having your own firm and, what you're doing today?
The most challenging is that 22 people and their families are relying on me to continue to bring the business in and to live my life in a way that doesn't negatively impact them. So that's the biggest weight, but I really don't even feel it as a weight because we get asked all the time to merge with other firms, and I think about that life and I'm like, no, I'm good. I'm good. And so that was challenging. Going through the pandemic was excruciating. We started out as a virtual law firm, but then our culture was so good that we had to buy more and more space at our office at One Arts Plaza in Dallas. And so we transitioned quickly to working from home because we essentially were doing that. But then we had so much growth that happened during the pandemic. So being able to grow and get laptops where they needed to be. And we forget, it's like childbirth, because if we remembered it, there'd be less people on earth, right? But we forget how challenging the pandemic was to just engage with the people we work with on a daily basis. So, and then right now we're transitioning, we're expanding again. And so it brings that anxiety, like we're going to knock down another wall to expand the firm some more because we just need more space. And then that makes me go, and then that makes me want to get more business. So that's tough. Being able to hire professionals, like we have a lawyer and an accountant and a tax person, and managing all of that is a lot. Because I just love being a lawyer.
Yeah, the business side.
The business side of it. And one thing that we really try to do, and I hope law schools start doing and law firms do it, is teaching associates and young partners the business of law. Like you must bill 2,100 hours a year. Nobody, but why? What's the why? And these new generations, they just don't do like I did and go, okay. They say, well, why? Why do I have to? And being able to articulate that, to me, builds a better culture within our firm because I'm just not throwing some random number out at you. The 2,100 hours means this. One number goes to your salary, one number goes to overhead, one goes to profit. If you don't make these hours, we can't keep the lights on. We can't have firm profit. It means we don't stay open. Oh, it's that simple. And so teaching people the practice of law, how to be good lawyers, how to be ethical lawyers. One thing about, because I know ethics credit, is zealously representing your client. That does not mean you lied. But I feel odd having to say these things, but it's true. Like, it's not a TV show. It's not, I'm going to hide the document, it's, I'm going to delete this screenshot because it's going to be bad for the case. It's about zealously representing your client, but at the end of the day, your biggest obligation is to the court system. And that means that even if you're on a case and you go in for a motion to compel hearing or a dispositive motion hearing, a summary judgment hearing where if you lose, the case goes away. if that judge turns to you and says, Ms. Stewart, does this case say what the plaintiff says it says? And if it does, I have to say, yes, Your Honor, Mr. Ross properly represented what the case law is on this. Even if that means I lose, even if that means I have to go back to my client and tell them we lost the case, even if I go back to that client and then he says, well, I'm never using you again. Even if that client says, I'm never using you again and I'm pulling the 20 cases from you now, that's the ethical part of what we do. That's why what we do matters. So there's zealously representing your client, but it also is the duty that you owe, the ethical duty you owe to the courts. Because the last thing you want is for someone to report you and you go through the process of being investigated by the State Bar of Texas because of some ethical violation. That never, ever leaves you. Chief Justice Carolyn Wright Sanders has a saying, and she says, protect your bar card with your life. And it's true. Like, a client can come and go. A colleague can come and go. A partner can come and go. But if you don't have your bar card, you can no longer be one of the most powerful people in the world. There are not many professions that have the amount of power that lawyers have. I mean, I could subpoena somebody today and they would have to show up. What? And so I think the ethical part of what we do sometimes gets in the weeds because we're just so busy. But you know it when you come up on an issue that you're dealing with, you're doing doc review, and the client says, we don't have any documents. We don't have any documents. And then you get into the documents and you find the smoking gun document. And that is when ethics hits the road. What are you going to do at that point? If you're at the free throw line, end of the game, everybody's watching you, what are you going to do? You got to do the right thing. And so that's where ethics for the students, I think, needs to come into play.
I think that's a great answer. And so we have a few minutes left, and so we'll have one more question, and then we can see if anyone in the room has questions or online. And I think really what you just said answers this too. So see if there's anything else you would say. If you were speaking to the law students in the room, what is something you would say you wish you had known, that you had known, what might you have done differently, or what do you wish you had known when you were in law school looking back, from your coaching advice?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so that when you think you're going to work at Arby's, that may not actually be what happens. So keep looking for the stars. Maintain relationships from law school. That's one thing that I didn't do because I had a baby and then we moved. And so I didn't maintain the relationships with my classmates. And I'm starting now to pick up some different matters and sending them matters, but I really wish I would have done that. Learn how to research, like Westlaw, LexisNexis, whatever you're using here. Make sure you learn how to research, because one thing what my young associate, William, he comes to me and thinks I know everything, which sounds cool, not right. And so, you got to go and research those answers. You got to go on Westlaw. And then the other part is what we say at our firm, the paralegal is responsible for the documents. The associate is responsible for the facts. So when you become an associate at any size firm, you need to know the facts backwards and forwards, so that if we're sitting here and someone says something happened on some certain date, I turn to William and he now knows he better have that date right there. I'm not saying in his brain and how he keeps his notes and the organizational part. You win and lose cases based on knowledge of the facts, not necessarily knowledge of the law.
Do we have any? Let's see.
So are there any questions?
Mnemonix, and I teach here at the law school, and I teach first year procedure and litigation related subjects. I agree wholeheartedly with everything you've had to say and all the advice that you're giving to students, particularly about getting to know your classmates, and they will be friends for life. So here's my question. One of the things I talk to my students about, particularly if you're having a litigation practice that spans several states, is the importance of knowing and understanding local legal culture. And I hate to stereotype parts of the country, but local legal culture in some places is very cooperative, and lawyers from other places embrace what we used to call Rambo lawyering. And so my question to you is, how do you handle the Rambo lawyers that you've encountered? And before you answer that, I also always tell my students that you don't have to be a Rambo lawyer to be effective, right? And that you can prevail on behalf of your client without doing it. But that doesn't answer the question of what do you do when you encounter a Rambo lawyer on the other side of the dispute?
Yeah, good question. So first, the local rules. So we get a lot of cases because someone from outside of the state has litigation in pick a county. It is my job to know local flavor. Who's this judge? What political party this judge is? Not that that really matters anymore. And what the judge's court coordinator is and how do they like to run their court. Like, you have to have that knowledge. And if you need to hire local counsel to consult with regarding that, you absolutely need to know what the local rules are. And then there's the local rules. And that's why you need local counsel. And so there's normally the county rules, the court rules, and then there may be judge rules. And so you have to stay on all three layers of that. Regarding the Rambo, it goes back to the bullying. What I have found is that if you know the procedure, civil procedure, to a T, you can get around that Rambo-style type of litigation a lot. And also holding people accountable, holding that bully accountable, keeping every email exchange that you have so that you can create a record, because those are going to end up being what? Exhibits to a motion to compel or a motion for sanctions, or them saying, oh, we're going to file a motion for sanctions against you. As the kids say, got to have your receipts. And make sure those receipts show you being ethical, respectful, communicative, because the judge at the end of the day is going to look at those. And before you even show up, they're going to determine the type of person you are based on the way you communicate in emails when allegedly no one's ever going to see these again. Appellate counsel, if you have an issue of Rambo style, because normally what I see the Rambo style is because they know they're going to lose the case. So they need emotion behind what they're doing because they're not going to win on the law or the facts. And so you need to lean in strategically on the law and the facts and then hold that person accountable. You always have to have a court reporter in the room. It happens a lot in labor arbitrations. The union doesn't want a court reporter because they just want to act ridiculous in that arbitration hearing. It's amazing how people behave when they know they're being recorded. And so those would be just a few things.
All right. Do you have any parting words? I would say, I'm thrilled you were with us today, especially coming off of a plane from Italy. So
Yes.
Bless you for your work-life management. But thank you for being here today. And any parting words?
Yeah. Any student that's here or watching or listening, and I know people don't believe this, but I have mentors from across the state. I speak at Lead Academy in Bexar County. We lead in Dallas. Helping women and minorities thrive in the profession is my God-given belief that that's why I'm here. So if you need anything, please find me on LinkedIn. It's not hard to find an email these days. Please reach out.
That's great. Thank you all for joining us today. We are at time, and I know students need to head to class. So reminder, if you are in the room and you want to claim CLE, make sure you signed in. And pick up your lunch on the way out for those of you in the room. If you are online, we noted your attendance if we could see your name, but if you called in by phone, email us to let us know you were here so we can make sure we get you your CLA information. Don't forget to join us on October 15th for our discussion with Ambassador Patman. And thank you, Amy, for being here today. And thank you all for being here today. It was great to see you. Have a great day. Thank you.